inspiration is easier found face to face. You know what I mean? If you go and have a coffee conversation with somebody and you look them in the eyes, I'm old school like that. You know what I mean? I want to be able to like breathe that situation in.
This episode is all about the creative job market, and we've got a guest on the show today. I'm super excited. This specific episode we've been postponing a few weeks now, so we are so excited to be here. I had a quick chat to our guest last week, and we almost had to stop ourselves before our chat turned into a full-blown episode. So, he studied industrial design, started practicing process or service design as we know today, and then got into the product world, designing for people. And today, he helps people in the industry craft the career and job they want and help businesses thrive by using design thinking methodologies. All right, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Cobus Engelbrecht. Cobus, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Hi, that was amazing. I didn't know I could do all that. I honestly didn't know I could do all those things. That's great. But no, thank you so much for that. No, like I'm really honored for the opportunity as well. I'm not going to kind of like go into too much detail, but yeah, I studied industrial design, helped these two guys kind of more in the print industry, kind of build up their small businesses. Really, during that time, I got a love for small business, and then I found recruitment. But more on the marketing side of things, so more your SEO, your digital designers, art directors, those kind of things. And then I helped my wife with her business for a bit. I did the UX course to get smarter during that time. And helped, there was a small business here in Cape Town called Funk. They do like digital software, helped them with project management. And then my daughter was born, and the MD at the time at Recruit Digital said to me, man, I've got a seat for you, come back, you can take the experience design portfolio. And I just couldn't resist, and here we are. So I've been doing that now, specifically working in that field now since 2019, just focusing on experience design, UX, UI, bit of service design and some customer experience as well. And just loving it, man. It's great people, it's a great industry, and obviously I'm focused here in South Africa, and I just feel there's so much opportunity, especially now. It's just it's amazing, man.
Absolutely. That's such an interesting path you took to get to recruitment. Do you still do design yourself, or are you just focusing on helping businesses and people finding jobs?
Yeah, no, I don't do design at the moment myself at all. I focus purely on kind of like building the relationships. So having a relatively good understanding of what it is that that business needs. And that's just not just necessarily from an experience or a skill set or an ability, also just from a personality, the individual, and how that suits. And then obviously going out and having conversations with individuals such as you guys, and just like making that match, I suppose. Ultimately, a lot of the work I do is I do it with my gut. It really is, and I think I'm very fortunate in the sense as well that I'm working with businesses that I can believe in. So, and I always tell people, like, you've got to find something that you have a passion for within that opportunity, right? So it's either the leadership at that company, or the opportunity, or the growth, or the scale. But yeah, so we're super fortunate, man, to have like really, really great opportunities here in South Africa that I'm allowed to share.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. We are definitely fortunate. It's been a very booming industry for us, despite COVID and everything that's happening around us.
Well, I mean, and I say this with the utmost respect as well. I mean, because a lot of people were extremely adversely affected by COVID. People lost lives, people lost jobs, companies, businesses. So like I said, I really am saying it with respect, but from a digital perspective, it's been insane. And I mean, we've got global offices. So it's not just here in South Africa, it's globally. And marketing has been affected somewhat, obviously, as well, because the products that you build needs to go to market. But the technical side of things has definitely been like, it's just been booming. It's insane. So like, obviously, your engineering and your design. So product side. So there's definitely opportunity abound.
It's so interesting to hear that from you, because obviously that was my experience as well, and Alfie and I were also speaking about it. But hearing it from someone who's obviously dealing with a lot more people in the industry, hearing that it's a nationwide or a global thing, that the industry has luckily been not only surviving but almost thriving and expanding, now that everyone sees the value and the demand for digital products.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, I suppose I don't want to like kind of summarize it too narrowly, but let's look at just commerce. Like that's a very, very small piece of the pie that we can look at. Now, a lot of businesses needed to go into that direction to be able to sell their product, right? So just within doing that, there's already businesses that have now demand, right? They need engineers, they need designers, and those individuals need to come from somewhere. And I mean, like I said, that's just one component of it. Banking had to really pull up their socks. There's businesses that digitized, and then there's businesses that were already digital, but now it's like, under threat is maybe a bit of an aggressive term to use, but you know what I mean? You've got to stay on top. So all of those guys, like your Take-A-Lot, the Fashini Group, Macro, Edcon, all those guys are like, okay, let's build on what we already have or what we do require to stay relevant in market. So, and I mean, that creates a lot of demand, right? And I mean, that's just local businesses. And then there's international businesses. We get a lot of guys from the UK, from the States, that's either making landfall here, so saying, look, we want to build teams here because we know individuals are skilled and able. Those resources needs to come from somewhere. You know what I mean? And that leaves voids elsewhere. So it's just like so much opportunity. I mean, it's funny, man. It's like it's happened twice this year where I've had two individuals, because surely they were very skilled, they had the right personality and everything, but that was sitting on 5 offers. And like they were timely. Wow. They were timely as well. And what I mean by timely is the fact that they weren't kind of pushing. They weren't asking an opportunity to wait for them. They literally had. They could make that decision within a week. They could print them out and lay them on the table. It's nuts. Wow. It's good though, right? It's fantastic. I mean, it makes it a super competitive market. And I mean, I suppose South African businesses still struggle a little bit to compete with the international guys. I mean, we don't trade in the dollar, we don't trade in the euro, so it makes it tricky. But I mean, and I think maybe I'm jumping or I'm going to, but maybe we'll cross this path a bit later. But I'll just put it out there in any case. And I've said before, and I'll kind of like stick to it, is that a package has become very personal. You know what I mean? It's not just a CTC anymore. It's like, okay, well, we can't maybe compete with international business, but we can give you we can give you study leave. We can pay for your studies. We can do like really direct mentorship. I mean, I know the guys in ShopRite X, they're doing some great stuff to just like really build culture again. You know what I mean? Because I think that's being lost a little bit. Because you can easily go, well, if I can work remotely, I can work remotely for any company. You know what I mean? Like what? You know what I mean? So exactly. It's become like very important, that culture piece. It's almost part of the package in a sense, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's made things very interesting, which is great. But I think as long as businesses come to the party and meet an individual at their needs, their penultimate needs, then they're going to win.
So besides COVID and how COVID's accelerated the demand of the market the past year or year and a half, how else have you observed the industry has changed if we think back to 5 or 7 years ago?
Yeah, it's tough, man. So it's obviously, I think that it's a loaded question, right? Because there's a lot going on, and like a lot has stayed the same, but a lot has obviously changed.
Big one.
Yeah. So I think let's talk about the remote thing, right? Because that's a super delicate conversation at the moment. I work with clients that have basically stated outright, like, look, we can't offer remote opportunities. It is in office. I mean, obviously at the moment it's still kind of government mandated, if I can call it like that. So there's about a 15% capacity of people in office, and depending on how kind of COVID rolls itself out, that would change which way or one way or another. But I think personally, I feel a hybrid model is probably the best way to go. It's that tangibility, man. Like I used to love, before, like back in the old days. I used to love to tell people, like, drinking everything, man, from the moment that you touch that door handle to the smells, like who's smiling at you? Are they are they greeting you? Are they not greeting you? Do they look flustered? Do they look happy? Those things are just, it's sad to see that go. And I mean, and sure, the thing is, I suppose I'm completely contradicting myself now, but I suppose it's all right. It's a conversation, right? But I've also, the flip side of that is I've always said, like, the beauty of the remote thing, and I've always used this example, is that, and I mean, I'm from Namaqualand, so I'm using Springbok as an example, but you could literally have a VP of engineering go sit in Springbok, and like this small town, and the guy is just like, he's doing this wonderful job from there, and he can then in turn invest in the community. Like, I don't know, like he's got some extra money to spare, so maybe buy some shares in a hotel or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, but I think the story that I'm trying to create there is the spread of wealth. You know what I mean? Everybody doesn't need to sit in the city. Everybody, you can move out and you can spread that more evenly, I suppose, which makes the easier living in the city because there's not traffic, because not everybody's there. Yeah. So I don't think I really answered your question at all, to be honest.
But I think you did touch on something very interesting. I was actually chatting with my dad the other day. So my family's originally from Kenya. And so like, with the introduction of like the industrialization of the country and sort of like more and more cities coming up, the general culture, especially among young people, was that the people who had sort of had their family in the village would move to the city and they'd work there, and then they'd sort of like send part of the money back home, but then they'd essentially be paying for their living situation in the city. And since COVID, so many of those people have gone back to the village, and they kind of have taken a lot of the essentially the value that they would create, and they would bring that back to the village situation. And if you think about sort of what you mentioned about people working remotely, it actually introduces something pretty interesting, because the place that you live essentially now can benefit much more from the value that you create as an individual, both from the financial perspective, but also simply as a community member. Because the restaurants I go to and the people that I meet for socializing is now no longer just within the city, and so the sort of the different local microeconomic structures have essentially gone and strengthened in a way because of this shift into remote work. So I think that's going to have some interesting effects moving forward.
100%, man. That's well said, because the thing is, it's also about your impact as an individual, right? And if you're close to home, you also feel more connected. I mean, something simple as you can go to schools and you can go have conversations about, like, this is the opportunities, these are the possibilities. You know what I mean? That people probably wouldn't have known, because you're removing yourself from that community when you're having to go to the city. Out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean? So, but if you're there and you're present, you can have a real impact there.
It makes you wonder if in like 5 to 6 years, if we do adopt some type of hybrid model, if you will see, Cobus, like you mentioned, the distribution of wealth is more equal now. Will it even be more equal in 7 years, or as the economy keeps growing and moving and changing? Will we, because now, especially in South Africa, we have a very strong divide between city and non-city spaces. And maybe that will also then start changing. I mean, you can see in Cape Town, in Betty's Bay, that had a population of 3 people, now all of a sudden have 400 Joburgers buying properties and wanting to live there.
100%. I do believe that. And look, also, I mentioned the hybrid piece, just because I think we're still very close to how things were. I think the more comfortable we get with being able to create culture remotely, it is going to start fading away even more so. And I think it's necessary. I think it's required. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think specifically with the one element, I guess, about remote work that I'm personally still getting used to is sort of not having the element of like natural, like organic collaboration. I think that's one thing that can't be replaced no matter how much you try from a remote perspective, just because, so much of the collaboration that happens from an organic perspective is based on your surroundings, and that doesn't tend to happen remotely. I was listening to an audiobook recently. I don't remember what it was called, but they were speaking about a board that they had, and it had all of the results of the user testing that was going on in the company. And so every time like engineers or project managers would walk past, like it was between the kitchen and I think the engineers the area where they sat. And because it was kind of like so central, everyone sort of was brought so much closer to the user because they had to go past it. And those sort of like organic cheats and hacks that you can do don't seem, or maybe we just haven't figured them out yet, because I think there's an element of collaboration that's yet to be discovered from a remote perspective. I don't know what if you have any thoughts or insights that you've come across, either related or maybe even different, that you've kind of picked up on your side, Cobus.
Yeah, it's again, it comes down to that tangibility, right? But I think because of the situation that we're currently in, I think there is guys busy building tools so that we can have that. You know what I mean? That's going to digitize it, but we're still very fresh. I mean, obviously, like look at like Teams and Zoom and all these guys that have to just quickly like pull their pants up and go, oh, we've got to add features and do these things so that people can do this remotely, right? So I think these kind of tools are going to keep evolving as we go along. But you see, so the way I've kind of explained it is like, I think a business, so let's just kind of get back to the remote piece, right? So something that bothers you is that collaboration piece, right? For me, it's like, I have a toddler at home, so, and my house isn't very big. So to be able to work from home, I literally have to sit on my bed. So, and that's like, you can only do that for like an hour, and then you're basically lying down and you're like working like this. It's not, you know, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? So,
and you're asleep.
Exactly. So to like have so what I've kind of been telling businesses is like, create an opportunity for people to be able to work how they need to work best, right? So you're going to have people that have got full families at home. They would honestly prefer going to an office. You know what I mean? They want to have a space. Or if you want to have a collaboration session, you know what I mean, for like 3-day workshop, have a space that you can go to and you can go and do that. And like amazing things are going to happen there. But kind of like build it around the individual, I think is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? So then you could also still be remote. But if you know, like in a week's time, you're going to have 3 days in the office, you're going to get so pumped. You go wherever you're living, you're going to jump in your car, say cheers to the wife and the kids, say, I'm going to go to the city for 3 days and I'm going to go have an absolute joy at the office and we're going to just innovate and we're going to talk and we're going to collaborate. And you're going to be so inspired by that as well, because that's something that I found as well. Inspiration is easier found face to face. You know what I mean? If you go and have a coffee conversation with somebody and you can look them in the eyes, I'm old school like that. You know what I mean? I want to be able to like breathe that situation in. But again, it's about building that opportunity. And also, if you think about it, we're talking specifically creative, right? So within creative, that collaboration piece is super important. But there is other avenues where it's not so necessary, where if you essentially you work on a very briefed scenario, so you'll be briefed, you do your job, you hand in your work, you're done. So you don't necessarily need it so much. So I think it's very important for business to understand how that individual plugs into the greater piece of the business and then accommodating accordingly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not everybody is like, I'm saying this tongue in cheek, I suppose, because I'm not saying all devs, but you'll probably find it more in the dev arena where the guys are like, look, man, I want to put my headphones on, leave me alone, I want to do my job. You know what I mean? And it's easier for them to do so. Where with design, I mean, you want to talk to users and you want to you're stuck with a problem that you need to be able to share with your colleagues, and you need to really just work through it. Then having a space where you can go. But I mean, then you can have these, what do they call them? These spaces, co-working spaces and things. I mean, that's happening as well. So there's many ways to pull the rug under the cat. You know what I mean? So I suppose either way.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit more into what you do in recruitment, what does your typical day look like? Like, what do you do?
Well, what do I do?
That is a good question.
Literally, this is what I do. Next one. I just rap all day long. I love it. Honestly, my phone bill is through the roof. But no, all jokes aside. So and I mean, I don't want to go into a mass amount of detail into it because I can, obviously, but I'm going to try and quickly summarize it. So there's different ways of going about it, but penultimately, what I do is I do introductions according to needs and wants. I suppose that's the crudest summary of it. So either a client's going to come to me, an existing client's going to come to me and say, look, man, we have this need, and then I'll obviously go to market. So we've kind of got our CRM system that just posts jobs to all the different I don't really, I do it because it's part of my job, but I predominantly use LinkedIn. And I just go and have conversations all day and go and find the individuals that I feel could be suited for that role. Obviously, a lot of it is maybe referrals, people that I already know, or I go and find new individuals. So that's obviously, that's a very, just a straightforward piece of my job. My client has a need and I try and help them fulfill that. I obviously also go and look at businesses that I find intriguing, and I go and ask them, hey man, what can I help you with? Is there any opportunity for us to hopefully possibly work together? And then I obviously also have individuals coming to me and saying, hey man, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. And being able to be a soundboard for them, to give them as much advice as I have. And maybe if it falls in line with a client that I have that might not have a specific need, we can do an introduction like that. Or if there is, it also happens that somebody is coming to me and I just happens to have an opportunity and go, well, I've got this opportunity. Let's go and have that conversation. And then obviously those are the nice bits. The bits that what we kind of call when you're in the trenches is when you're trying to help people get the right packages for themselves, or just negotiating kind of needs and wants. That's also part of the job. But that's a part that I love as well, because there's something that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine is when people come to me and say, your money is not a problem. I'm like, we're all grown-ups. You want to buy a house. You want to get, maybe you want to get married. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to travel the world. Maybe you want 100 dogs. I don't know what it is, but you are going to be needing to be in a position where you are comfortable to be able to do the job that you love to do with all of your drive and all of your passion. You know what I mean? That's the bottom line. So that's a very important piece for me. And a lot of people find it quite interesting. And a lot of people don't like to have that conversation. It's a tough one to have, right? I've been helping my sister a lot at the moment as well. She finds it very uncomfortable. But for me, because I do it all the time, it's bro, it's just part of the conversation. I always say there's two parts of this whole thing. There's opportunity and it's package. Because opportunity is your career. That's what drives you. That's what makes you make these decisions. But the package is so that you can do that happily and freely and you can feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Your needs are met. We don't live in a country where we've got free education and you can just walk into a hospital and they'll sort you out. You need to have those things in place so that you can feel comfortable to do the job that you do. So that's also a part of what I do. And I really try and I don't really want to be seen as a recruiter. And I say this a lot because I'm a consultant. It's what I do. I love having these conversations. I love at the moment, I'm super, super busy. I'm like a throttle. So I can't give as much as I'd love to. But for me, it's about, I don't want people to just call me up if they are looking for an opportunity. It's if they, say for instance, they have been approached by a particular business just drop me a WhatsApp, be like, dude, do you know these guys? Do you rate them? You don't? Have you had any conversations with them? And I'll share my insights. I always joke and I say, nothing that I say is my opinion. It's literally just because of all the calls I have all day and every day. I've built these insights because of what everybody else is saying. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just, and that's a part of my job that I really, really love, is being able to just share as much. I mean, here we are, right? We're busy sharing insights and information. So, yeah.
So I actually had a question on something that you mentioned, and I think you struck on something very important. The fact that the difficulty people find when it comes to the discussion about money and the package. So, let's say, very hypothetically, and you don't have to give away all of your trade secrets, but if I was a person that was, let's say, struggling to conceptualize what I'm worth or what I should ask for, like, what are some general things that you could sort of say to them, or maybe point out a few things for them to think about personally to actually get into the right mind space when it comes to speaking about that conversation?
Yeah. Again, also, and I was expecting this from this call, loaded question, right? But it's fine because I have this conversation basically every day, so it's all right. Look, it's a tricky thing, right? So, and again, there's a lot to it, so I'm gonna just kind of go at it. And if you guys feel like I just need to rein it in a little bit, just put your hand up. So, depending on the business, it really differs, right? Your corporates are going to ask you for a payslip, a current payslip. That's just what they do because they're trying to kind of immediate standardizations, not necessarily in the greater group as in like in South African context, but within their business, because they obviously have, they've got levels, they've got junior, mid, senior, lead, and then they move up, manager, whatever, and they've got to kind of keep those things in context, right? So they can't bring a junior in and pay them a senior salary if they've got a senior. It's about standardization within those organizations. So there is a lot of corporates that's going to ask you for your current situation, let's call it that. So in those situations, I'm frank about it. I mean, we haven't spoken recruitment before, but if you know me, that's how I work. I'm super frank about it. I say, look, this is the situation. They are going to ask you for that. So then, I've started doing it lately. It's kind of a little bit jokingly, but I always say, I'm like a lawyer for your package. You know what I mean? The more context, the more information I have, the better I can aid you and help you, right? So if I don't know, I'm not going to be able to help you, because then if you say to me, oh, I want so much, that's the only information I have. I can go to my client, they say, oh, well, we think they're asking too much. I'm like, well, it's market related, but I can't give you more information. And then that kind of then you start you're kind of on a footing where it's kind of businesses are a bit okay, well, what is the full story here? You know what I mean? So anyway, so that's going to happen. A lot of businesses are obviously not going to ask you for that. So then you can be a little bit more loose about it. And a package is also a strange thing. There's always a Takealot is different to a ShopRite, is different to a SnapScan, is different to a Free Thinking. The packages look very different. So you've always got the way I kind of advise it is always to look at a gross annual figure. And I always say this. So the way that I always tell individuals to think about it is this. So pretend you're going to the worst case scenario. And worst case scenario, I mean, you're going to a month-to-month contract, right? Where you're literally getting a gross figure and that's it. All that comes off is your PAYE and your UIF. So you've got to cover medical aid, pension, or whatever you've got to pay off your credit card, you've got a home loan, you've got all these things.
Insurances.
Exactly. So because packages are different, like at banking, fintech, you're going to get all these other different small little discounts and things. And I know the different consultancies have got they work different things into it. So you've always got to look at kind of rather an overall gross, and then you can kind of figure it out, because then you can go to a company and say, this is what I need guaranteed yearly, and then they can build it up. So they'll say, okay, cool, we can't reach that in CTC, but we can offer you a bonus once a year, or we can give you medical aid contribution or whatever. So that's kind of that's that. But I think the thing for me is it's I always start the package conversation with, what do you want? What is it that you need? Let's start there and we can work our way back, because I want to know, what do you value yourself at? If somebody is in a position where they feel they feel undervalued, it's going to be a bit of a different conversation because they'll say to me, look, dude, I feel like I'm undervalued. Then I'll usually ask, okay, cool, what are you currently on? Because unfortunately, in South Africa, it is impossible to have a standard. It just is.
Yeah.
I can't, if somebody says to me, is it market related? I'm like, well, depends on your journey, right? If you've been somewhere for 7 years, you're definitely going to be under market related because you've been there for that long. You've only been getting, unless you've like really diversified what you do and you've gone from like a junior to like a team lead or something, your package has just been getting that annual increases year to year, right? And I mean, that's just how it is. So then you've essentially put you on the back foot. If you come from agency and you want to move to corporate, agency pays very differently to corporate. Fintech pays differently to product. So it's super, super difficult. So for me, it's more about let's look at the situation that we have, and let me have a conversation with you so that we can figure out, okay, cool, where do you feel yourself, where are you situated, and what is the best thing we can do for you. And I mean, within saying that, I'm a huge advocate for trying to get people the most I can get them. And this is really not just because I'm a recruiter and I get paid commission, I promise. The reason why I do that and the reason why I'm saying this, for business, it buys longevity, and for the individual. Because if you think about it now, right, let's say for instance you're on 40K monthly CTC, right? And you want to move somewhere else now. They say, okay, cool, they come to the party, oh, we love you, whatever, we give you 43. Okay, cool. So 3 times 12, that's 36. That's not a big amount that you're getting yearly extra that you're moving for. I mean, I know I'm getting like super detailed now, but now another company comes around 2 months later and they say, okay, we'll pay you 48. It's a similar opportunity. You go, well, sure, that's an extra 5 times, that's extra 60 grand a month. I'm going to do that because it's a similar opportunity. And I'm depending on where you are in your life, like maybe you're literally like at that moment where I need to buy a house. This is the next phase in my growth, my individual growth. Extra 6 grand is going to make a big difference, right? So what I usually tend to do with business, I'm still trying to figure out, I've been thinking that it's a percentage. The thing is, the higher your CTC is, I suppose that gap gets smaller because if you're on like 1.4 to ask for a 20% increase, that's a lot, right? So you've got to kind of like I suppose it gets incrementally less, if I can put it like that, but also the more senior you are, it's not really about package anymore, then it's more about the opportunity. But the more junior you are, I try and tend to, so like the 40, 50s, I always try and do like at least a 10 grand increase at least, because the reason for me is it's like your annual increases, you kind of like you're doing this, so then it slowly catches up to you. So you've got at least 3. I mean, I'm not saying you want to stay wherever you're going for 3 to 5 years, but you can and still be market related. So you're almost like giving yourself a bit of a bump so that because your annual increases is kind of like going to bring you back to being standard. So it gives that business the knowledge of saying, cool, we're coming to the party for you. So we're giving you a package that says, look, we trust in what you're doing and your experience, and we want to have you around for a while. So we're going to give you an increase that's going to make you comfortable, feel comfortable to give us your time for the next at least 2 to 3 years. That's kind of like how I usually advise. So, I mean, there's much more, I suppose, we could talk about the package, but I think I've kind of covered a decent amount. And look, guys, also, I just want to be completely honest. The way that I'm answering these questions with you guys, this is exactly how I do it when I'm on a call, because that's why I don't like it's kind of like stage. I'm terrible at presentations. I hate it because I have to like learn something beforehand. Doesn't work for me. I stutter. I just love having, like I said, these calls I do every day.
This is great.
This is me straight.
Really great insights.
I actually wanted to mention there was a point where I was like, I thought to myself, like, this feels like a coaching session. This is amazing. So I think it's going to be like really useful for the people.
Like making mental notes.
Exactly.
Yeah, somebody actually,
I think there's something that I just wanted. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's just, sorry, I'm interrupting. Somebody just said to me the other day, like, dude, you're actually like a life coach as well, you know that? I was like, that's maybe a bit over the top, but I mean, it's just, I just give the information that's at hand, you know what I mean?
Well, if you work your whole whole day, then I guess your job is your life. So if you're a job coach, you're a life coach.
Yeah, and I dig it as well. So
Fair
helps.
enough. One thing I did want to highlight about what you said, just because I felt it was really important, is that idea of sort of the company buying longevity. Because I think, very often as a person kind of looking for work, especially if you don't go through the sort of recruiter relationship that you're kind of describing and speaking to us about, where it's a little bit more transactional. You almost just think of your like what you're going to ask for as more than what I'm getting now, rather than like an investment in the future. And I think, especially from the perspective of the businesses, that's a really important piece of advice. Because there are a lot of smaller creative shops or companies that have a creative element that sort of maybe don't have the budget to go through a recruiter and kind of do things themselves. And I think for those situations, especially, it's super important for them to understand that there's a level of like, it sounds strange, but buying trust in a sense. Like, we are going to invest in you for this specific amount of time because we sort of see the value not only in what you do, but what you're going to do in the future. Because, especially in smaller companies, often what happens is, people sort of join them to cut their teeth, to sort of get their first few stripes, and then they move on because they don't feel like there's any sort of future potential. And so I guess that sort of maybe leads into a related question I wanted to ask. What would you say, let's say for the situation where you have had someone on for 3 to 5 years and they've kind of like closed that gap, and they're kind of like at the threshold of the sort of market related package. What could you maybe say to companies for them to maybe try and keep on those people that are kind of reaching that 3 to 5 year gap that they sort of bought into? Like, is there a way that they can approach?
Alfie, I think you might have to repeat your question. You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, cool. Can you hear me better now?
Can you hear me now? So. Yeah. Okay, cool. Just repeat the question. Yeah.
So the follow-up question I wanted to ask was, for companies who have had someone on, let's say, for 3 to 5 years, and they have reached that sort of market level in terms of their package, what can they do to actually keep that person on? Because I think that might be, especially for a smaller company, the people that they have got a lot of IP and a lot of like understanding of the company's culture. And it can be a difficult struggle to kind of like keep those people when there's, bigger companies maybe who have got larger offers to give. So is there any like recommendations you can give from that perspective?
Yeah, man. So interesting question. That's really cool to ask. And I think a lot of businesses, it might be retrospectively done, you know what I mean, instead of like thinking about it proactively. But and I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the package becoming very personal. So there's a lot of things that you can add. I suppose you can give somebody the opportunity to grow, to expand from a career perspective. It doesn't always have to be financial, you know what I mean? But it does play a part. But if you think about it then, so let's say, for instance, you've got your categories within your business, is then open something up for that individual to be able to go into the next band. So obviously moving somebody from, and this is an interesting thing, right? Because not all designers want to be managers. So I'm not saying make them a manager. It's not necessarily always going to work. But so the thing that I've seen lately that seems to work is like you get the specialist route and you get the people route, right? So those are the two routes that you can either go. You can either go into a specialist route where you become like a lead. So a lead is fine because a lead, you're just there, honestly, like just leading from the front. So you can share your wisdom and your insights and kind of help and hold hands, but you're not literally sitting there stamps sheets for people, you know what I mean? Or you can go the management route. So I think it's important for these smaller companies to, and it's true what you're saying, it happens, right? Somebody is literally there to earn their stripes, and then they're off to the banks, or they go to take a lot, or to whatever the case may be, because it's just there's just that it's a bigger opportunity. So I think it's just really putting a lot of emphasis and value into the career journey that is at that business, the opportunity. I mean, where I am now, Salt, I mean, it's obviously we don't do design ourselves, but the array of opportunities is like just nuts. Like I could literally want to do anything, and there's gonna be an opportunity for me. You know what I mean? I can either become a practice lead, so I can start building my own team, which is kind of the route that I'm going to take, because I just feel like that's the right way to do it. I think if I just want to stay by myself, I'm not going to be able to serve my clients and the individuals in the industry well enough because I'm only one person. So I can either build a team, or I can go into business development, or I could just remain being kind of on my own, or there's many kind of ways to do it. You know what I mean? So I think that is a very, very, very important piece, is being able to have the foresight to create journeys for people so that they can go into doing that and be happy to do so.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
I saw, or Cobus, I think we've been LinkedIn connections for definitely more than 2 years.
Probably.
Even though this is the first video conversation or face-to-face conversation we've had. And I remember when we became LinkedIn connections, you always post the opportunities that you're busy with. And it does feel to me that there are increasingly more contract-based opportunities. Is that correct, or is it just me scrolling too far down on the feed?
No, and I think you guys touched on it when we said like what this conversation was going to about the freelancing and the contracting piece. It's a bit of a weird one, right? So when I started, and predominantly still, I focus on permanent employment. It's just the market that we're in. It's just what we do. Because a lot of the guys that do the contractual stuff is your fintechs, and we struggle to get into fintechs because fintech they build massive teams. You know, they've got the recruitment teams, they've got HR teams, so they kind of like handle most of that themselves. So from that perspective, I work predominantly still permanent, but I think it is something that is becoming more available. And for me, the main reason I feel is, again, it's businesses starting to realize but people want options now. You know what I mean? Whereas like a couple of years ago, it was like either you can work for us full time or whatever, you stay where you are. You know what I mean? Where now it's like, oh, but wait a minute, we've got to create opportunities around people's needs and wants. Because a lot of people, that I'm working with is kind of like bailed on the whole permanent employment kind of idea. They're just like, I don't want to be tied down. I mean, I'm old school, bro. If I had to go contract, my dad would literally slap me. But like, bro, no, you got to have a job, all right? Like, you've got to have a job and you've got to have a contract and you're there, okay? But obviously, my dad's the kind of guy who works somewhere for like 15 years at a time. So that's very different to what we are. And I think the contracting world and the freelance world has definitely opened itself up a lot more. There's a lot more businesses. I mean, guys that I've been working for that's been firm only, then they come to me and we can't find somebody, or the market is too competitive. They're like, oh, what about contracting? Can't we just get somebody on contract? You know what I mean? So it's definitely, the opportunities I'd say there is definitely more opportunities. I can't give a lot of context because it's not really my space. But yeah, I think, but from the conversations that I have, it's definitely become a lot more relevant. And then obviously there's a lot of contracting with businesses from overseas, for instance. You know what I mean? So what a lot of guys do is it's a means for them to keep their headcount down. So they'll have like a quota, I suppose, a yearly quota or whatever. But they need the hands, so they can't hire people permanently. So what they then do is they go contract, because it's a different contract, it's differently set up. So it's a means for them to get the hands to do the job without having to maybe outsource it to an agency or something like that. So it's just those will save a couple of bucks, I suppose.
And have you had an individual come to you that's currently permanent, but they want to move into the freelance or contracting space, but they want your advice or need your advice about how to approach the freelance or contract world if they've been permanent?
Yes, it definitely happens a lot. And what I kind of advise them is you kind of always start at home first, you know what I mean? So have that conversation, frankly, with the business that you're currently with, because you never know. Maybe they will give you a contract opportunity, and then you don't actually have to you don't have to leave, essentially, you know what I mean, and make it uncomfortable and like needing to go and just go blindly into that space, I
Yeah.
suppose. So you can always start there, or just kind of promote yourself on LinkedIn as a contractor to say, look, I want to go into the contract space, and that's what I want to do. But from an advice point of view, look, to each their own, man. If that's the route you want to go, that's the route you want to go. I mean, everybody's got personal reasons for doing that. I think a lot of people, the main reason why I've kind of seen that choice is to have the flexibility and the downtime, so that you can have downtime in between contracts. And then obviously also the flexibility, so that you can work on multiple projects, I suppose, over a span of a year.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I'm not 100% sure if I gave enough there. There's more you need.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's it. Yeah, that's on point.
Okay, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a business coming to you looking for talent, and you now on LinkedIn looking through millions of profiles, how do you spot out the pure talent or the genuine talent from the pretenders?
Interesting. Okay, this is a deep one. Let me just roll up my sleeves. No, look. To be honest with you, and this is a reason why I'm going to jump around a bit again, as you've noticed. That's what I love doing. So it just ties into something that we might run across later. Like, I'm a geographical expert, so we call ourselves SALT. We call ourselves universe experts. So if you want to come talk to me about analytics, I'd be like, nope, sorry. Caitlin's over there, go talk to her. I don't know. Well, I mean, I know how it fits into the puzzle, right? I'm not completely clueless, but I can't give you the right advice. But obviously experience design is my piece. But also within that, I'm a geographical expert, right? Because it's about knowing the space that I'm in. Sorry, just what was the question completely again? I went a bit off now, and I just need to bring myself back.
If you need to find someone that matches an opportunity, how do you sift out the bad talent from the good talent?
Yeah. So I trapped myself there because I went on a completely different tangent, but I forgot where I was going.
No worries.
So sorry about that. So it's, I suppose, so that's why I mentioned the geographical piece. So a lot of the businesses that people work for, I know. And then you obviously know what type of work those individuals are busy doing, right? So that obviously really helps. So now we can go into a couple of deep conversations. We can go the portfolio route, like to portfolio or not to portfolio. You know what I mean? That I've seen millions of conversations about that. And then there's obviously some people are more prone to look, I'll do an assignment if I have to. But then there's some people that say, no, I'll never do an assignment. That's just like, why would they ask me that? So I suppose let's start at the beginning, right? So a lot of the work I do is from individuals that I've obviously worked with in the past, and I know the type of individual they are. I know the quality of their work. So I would usually run kind of like through that first. And then if I'm approaching new individuals, look, it might not be the answer you're looking for, but a lot of the work I do with my gut. It's just like honestly, this job is 80%. 80% is maybe a bit wild. Like, just say 60% is I do it with my gut. But it is about it's about the conversation that I'm having. We don't do like references beforehand, so that's not usually part of the picture. That only comes later. So it really is about looking at the profile, and because the thing is, you've got to be super empathetic, right? Like, not everybody feels like spending time on their LinkedIn, adding detail and all of these things. So the difference between myself and like an HR person is I'm a bit of a detective. So if I see something and I feel there's something there, I'm going to pick up the phone and be like, yo, man, there's gaps here. Talk to me about the gaps. Like, what happened here? You just say you worked there and you're this, but what happened? Like, you know what I mean? But you can't kind of like judge it just by like what you see, because like I said, again, some people like to put time into their LinkedIn and some people don't.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that's going to be very happy to hear that.
Yeah. So it's really, look, I'm not going to lie to you. The more context there is, the easier it makes my job. So let's say, for instance, when I'm not super busy, I'm a lot more tentative with that. You know what I mean? I've got a lot more time to muck around and scratch around and ask and figure things out. But at the moment, when I'm super, super busy, the more you give me, the easier it is for me to make that decision. You know what I mean? If I've got a portfolio link that I can click on and I can just quickly see 1 or 2 case studies, I can contextualize, I can go, okay, cool. I can kind of like have an idea of kind of where you're at from a maturity level, rad, perfect. Then I can already come back and say, okay, cool, we can have a conversation about that, right? Or if you really have a detailed LinkedIn profile, you go, okay, awesome. I can see how you've developed. So when you were a junior, you were like, oh, I was just a resource and helping whatever. Now I'm a mid. Oh, now I'm actually doing my own research. I'm doing testing. I'm speaking to users. Oh, okay, interesting. Next piece. Oh, I've led a couple of projects. Then I can go, okay, cool. There's development here. I can see it. It's about me being able to contextualize, because all I have is a LinkedIn profile. I don't know you as a person. So for me, it's about, I have to make that. I mean, I try and not to. I can't be biased in this job, because you never know. I told this to my sister yesterday as well, because she's trying to apply for a job and they were asking her for a payslip beforehand, and she's like, I can't do that. I was like, bro, you never know. You never know unless you ask. You know what I mean? And that's the thing for me. So, but I suppose it depends on how busy people are. The busier they are, the less time they're going to have to be that detective. And this is purely from a recruitment perspective. So I suppose, long story short, a lot of it is because of previous conversations and people that I already know. So I've got context already, or being able to see context from that profile. And then obviously the last bit is my gut. Like, I mean, I've spoken to, I'm speaking to an individual now, obviously just for the sake of privacy, I'm not going to give you their name, but I've got some doctor-patient confidentiality going on here. But anyway, he's a gentleman, and I looked at his profile and I was like, something just seems right. Like, I don't know, it was just something. There wasn't a lot of detail. There wasn't even a portfolio or anything. I was just like, no, I've got to get this guy on the phone. And I called him and I was like, he's bona fide legend, man. And he was just like a super rad guy. And he sent me his portfolio, and I was like, dude, like, yes, man, let's do this. I've got a couple of opportunities that I think could work. So that was purely based on my gut, because there wasn't a lot of information there. And I've also had another example. I had somebody in the past. I mean, we've worked together for long now. When he first got a hold of me, he sent me like a word CV, and I was just like, a word CV. I just said, nope, I'm just going to read this thing. And I read it, and I was like, wait a minute, something's right here. And I went on the portfolio link, and I was just like, blown away. But again, you have to, like, in my job, I have to be unbiased. I can't be biased. You know what I mean? Like, I have to dive in. But again, like I said, it depends, I suppose, on how busy somebody are. If you're super busy, you're going to have to just, the more I have, the better chance I have of knowing who you are.
You've mentioned portfolio quite a few times, and I quickly, before I forget, just wanted to ask you, how important is it to have a portfolio? Because recently I've been doing work for a few of the corporates, and they are just, confidentiality and privacy. So there's 1% of my work I can put in my portfolio. How could you handle that if you're someone in that position and you can't really put stuff in your portfolio?
It's basically a lot of hard work. That's what it is, right? Because you've got to go and kind of skim all of that, right, and just make it blank. That's what you have to do.
Flip.
Look,
debrand.
Yes, exactly. Which is it's a bit of an egg, right? So, look, I try and overcome that hurdle as best I can. Because I feel like it's a case by case basis. There's individuals that are in, for example, the fintech space predominantly, right? You cannot share if you're under strict NDAs. But then I'll speak to the client. I'll say, look, this is the situation. Let's work around it rather. Let's make a plan. Let's see how we can accommodate this person. So at the moment, I'm working with a client, and they're being super accommodating. First, it was a design assignment, and now they're like, now they said, okay, cool, why not just present something that you already have? So not even a curated piece. So it doesn't even have to be a portfolio piece. It's just, you could just literally go on some of the files that you have. And also, we as SALT, we've got an NDA document in place. So if you do feel like the client needs to sign that, we can do that, which means it legally just binds them a little bit. But ultimately, I don't want to like sit on one side of the fence here. I don't want to put myself in that position for the sake of getting flack for it. But look, let me put it like this. Let me contextualize it so I feel safe for saying what I want to say. Somebody asked me, it was this week or last week, they said, look, I'm looking for international opportunities. And I said, if you're looking for international opportunities, you're going to have to do a portfolio. The reason being, if you're applying to the UK, I've worked at SnapScan. Okay, cool, bro. Who's SnapScan? They've got no context of who the brands are here in South Africa. So for them to be able to just look at a LinkedIn CV or resume, it's like, okay, we could see you can do these things, but at what level? What's the grandeur of these things? Yeah. So then it's important to have a portfolio because you need to be able to give them context. They need to be able to go, oh, so SnapScan, we don't know them. Oh, wow. Okay, this is interesting. What an interesting product. Oh, the team is the size. You know what I mean? It's about, again, that it's context again. You know what I mean? But I think within the South African context, what makes it a little bit easier is if I present somebody to a client and I say they come from, I don't want to be like supporting too many brands here, so I'm going to try and switch it up. Let's say Sweepside. I could say, this person comes from Sweepside. You know what that product is. Why do you need them to have a portfolio? You know exactly what it is. You can download the app and go look at it yourself, or you can go to the website and do some research. So it really just depends on the situation. Again, like I said, I do try and help both the individual and business to come to a place where a happy medium. A lot of people actually prefer a design assignment because of that. They're like, I'm not going to sit and build a portfolio. Some people are passive, and I bring an opportunity to them, and they're like, wow, I'm so keen on that, but I don't have a portfolio. And I go, okay, cool, don't worry about it. Let's go speak to the client and say, Mr. Client, what about doing an assignment? Because this person can't do a portfolio now, which portfolio is going to take them a month to do. An assignment can take 2 days to do. And another thing, while on the assignment topic, is I'm a massive motivator for the shorter the better. Reason being, if you are out of job right now, right? So let's say there's 2 people in the running for an opportunity. You're out of job. So, and the other person is literally being throttled at work. Now, as a client, Mr. Client says, hi, we really like you. Thanks for the first conversation. Here's a design assignment. And in 7 days. 7 days. That's a long time. The person who doesn't have a job is literally going to go, just storm that thing. The other person who's being throttled at work, they're probably going to put 2 to 3 hours into it. It's not a fair comparison. So what I try and do is I'm trying to push all my clients 48 turnaround time. And then some people freak out. They're like, oh, but that's too much. I'm like, that's better. It means like tonight you're going to spend 3 hours on it and you're going to be done. You're going to hand it and it's clear. You know what I mean? Instead of like pondering and thinking and like thinking, oh, wow, how much detail do they want? A whole week? Do they want me to work 10 hours on it? Do they want me to work 40 hours on it? It's like, it's a difficult thing. You know what I mean? Where I try, and also like, I suppose like most within fintech as well, things take very long. So I suppose you can have a project that goes longer, but it also just helps to contextualize how that person thinks on their feet as well. You know what I mean? It's just a quick assessment of how do you think, what is your process, and then how do you contextualize that? It shouldn't be this massive undertaking. It should be something that's just quick.
That is so useful. I mean, I think I've done at least 20 assignments. And it's exactly what you're saying. When they say, oh, okay, fine, we'll give you 4 days, it makes me think, 4 days, are they thinking 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours, and that's the amount of effort and output they want from me? But now what you're saying is so true, and it actually does make me feel a lot more settled, because I've had a few opportunities where they say 48 hours, and it makes me feel a bit disturbed at first, but it makes sense. It makes it an equal opportunity for output for 48 hours for everyone, and then they can't expect 48 hours of solid work for an assignment due in 48 hours.
Exactly.
So it is just thinking fast on your feet, trying to articulate the way you think as fast as you can.
Exactly. And also, I mean, we're all human, right? We all have jobs. So it's within that context as well. So they know there's only kind of like evenings and maybe a lunch that you can really work on it. So it just minimizes the pressure to like make this a massively detailed thing.
A portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. Then it ends up being a portfolio. Then you might as well rather do your portfolio and go, guys, well, there you go. Yeah. So, but I mean, again, like I'm a massive, like I stand behind it and I try and like, because we're all busy. I mean, and that's just your job. Now you got to go home. Maybe you got little ones, or the dog needs to go for a walk, or whatever the case may be, or your mom needs you. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on. So yeah, it just makes it easier from my understanding of how I feel about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think we'll be kind of like stepping up into the sort of closing stages of this, because we've almost hit an hour already. So I guess just two sort of questions that I think would be cool to sort of end off with. The first for me is like, so I guess in your role you sort of serve to customers or clients or users, essentially, the person looking for the role and the person looking to have a role filled. So are there sort of like two either really important or commonly sort of overlooked things that you could say from the business's perspective that they should always sort of think about when they're looking to fill a specific role, or just tips or sort of points of advice that you think are specifically useful?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to pinpoint, I suppose, one thing. And again, it could just bleed out into like another hour worth of conversation, but I'm going to try and keep it tight. It's just be realistic. Not every business is the top 1%. And I mean, maybe now I'm being a little bit like telling, maybe a little bit too much, but it's just what it is. You know what I mean? Like, not every business is the top 1%. So you can't always hire the top 1%. You've got to be able to understand your situation within the market and hire the right person for the job, and be able to give them a platform to be the best individual that they can be. And also just really understand the context. If you're not offering remote, you're literally looking for in your city or somebody who is willing to relocate to your city. People aren't looking to relocate at the moment, especially not from either side, because property is down. So if you have property, you're paying that, you've got to go somewhere else and pay rent. So that's one small piece. So what I'm trying to explain with that is like, think about how you're diminishing your pie. So if you say, in my city only, and I'm only looking for this, and only looking for this, and only looking for this, you know, it's getting smaller and smaller, especially now when like it's super competitive. Be open about it. You might need to hire somebody quite a bit more senior or quite a bit more junior than you were looking for, but you've got to be open to that opportunity, because you're just looking for the right person. At the moment, the most important thing is you're looking for somebody who's keen on what you do. You know what I mean? They're like, I mean, I'm not saying they got to like have their social media like talking about your business all day long. I mean, that's ridiculous to ask, but you know what I mean? They've got to be like, geez, I want to work for that business. That's so beautiful. I mean, why would you not want to hire somebody that wants to work for your business if they're going to at least do the job to some extent? You know what I mean? Like that's a big part of it. So be conscious of your pool or what you're doing or asking of your pool, and then also just be open to interpretation. I suppose. Like I said, there's much more to it, I suppose, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah. But I think that is really important, because it's easy to sort of kind of create this image that you're getting some Silicon Valley amazing
Yeah.
person, but your wallet doesn't really go that far, or even just the location that you're in doesn't specifically allow for that. So I think that is a really good piece of
Yeah.
advice. And then I guess the last question for the day, maybe apart from the things that we've touched on so far, for the other side of the group, the people who are sort of looking for their next creative gig, what are some of the things that you could sort of say to them that they should sort of keep in mind when they start looking, or when they're going in looking for a new role?
Yeah, let's talk about the guys that are going to be actively looking. Again, just to kind of have a point of conversation, because you can have passive and all this other, and it just makes it a bit too wide. So let's say somebody that's really looking. Take the time to dust off your resume. For me, I mean, we're digital, right? So I'm happy. I do a lot of individuals. I just send LinkedIn profiles over, but there's something special about I made this resume myself. You know what I mean? That's just, it's always going to beat a LinkedIn link. You know what I mean? It just, no matter how much details on your LinkedIn link, a personal resume trumps it every single time. So I would say like that's a good idea. Like I said, the portfolio piece, look, man, if you have case study that you can slap together or not, that it can help, but we've already had the discussion, so it just depends. But if you are actively looking, I suppose you're putting yourself in a bit of a different universe, right? You're now like, I'm here and I want to present myself. So it's probably a good idea, even if you just do one project. Like I always say, less is more. One project that's detailed, instead of like having 15 projects and they're all kind of like, and then also try and find somebody that you can have a discussion. If you like the salary thing, like if it is a pain point for you, find somebody to talk to about it, man. Like because you've got to be precise in the sense of value yourself. Not precise in the rand value, that's not what I'm saying. Just be precise in how you want to value yourself and understand that opportunities are different. And another piece of advice I gave not too long ago, which I think it's important just to say it here, is that, and I put it on a post on LinkedIn, yes, it's a candidate market at the moment. And what I mean by that is individuals looking for opportunity is spoiled for choice. But please don't get jaded. Don't go to an interview and be like, yeah, what's up, guys? What's the vibe? Like, you've given those individuals an opportunity to have a conversation with you. So, in essentially, you're not respecting them, you're respecting yourself by sitting upright, doing your due diligence, do your research, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. That might not be the right opportunity for you, but in that conversation, you might meet somebody, and one day they're going to be a leader somewhere else, and you're going to go, yo, I want to be there. But that guy's going to, that was a guy that was just like half-assing the interview.
Yeah.
Sorry for my language. But you know what I mean? So have respect for yourself to be in a position where you show up. You know what I mean? Like, that's your job as well. You know, we all love our jobs. That's why we're here. That's why we do it. So show up and just be present in the moment.
Yeah. And I think, that is definitely very important.
Especially because the industry is actually so small.
Super small, right?
News travels.
Yeah, and it's a pity that bad news travels faster than good news, but I suppose it's just a matter of, like I said, it's just a matter of respecting yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely right. I think we've kind of come to the end of our discussion today. But maybe before we do sort of end things off, is there maybe something either that you want to share, or like somewhere people can find you if you're sort of open to that kind of thing? Any last things from your side, Cobus?
Yeah, sure, man. Like I said, I really do just want to come across as a super genuine individual, because I believe that I am. I always try and be, it's weird, man, I try and be as unbiased as possible. I mean, obviously my clients they put the roof over my head, but I try and be as unbiased as possible, because I feel that leads to longevity within this industry. At the moment, I'm loving my job, and I think I'm going to do it for a long time. So for me, it's about being able to help people make the right choices, not the right choices for my clients. You know what I mean? And I really hope that kind of like comes across. That's just the way that I like doing my business. And I'm not a natural salesman. I'm not a bully. I'm just here to help as much as I can. And I dig my job, man. And my LinkedIn will float around somewhere. Go reach out. If I can't get back to you today, I'll get back to you tomorrow or the day after. I'll do my best. It depends on how busy I am. But and I don't, like I said again, just to conclude, don't just reach out if you're looking for an opportunity. If you need advice or anything, I'll do my best to try and help out, because that's my happy place.
Cool. Thank you so much. So if you hear that, everyone, Cobus Engelbrecht, if you need some advice, if you need some tips, or if you're looking for a new opportunity, you know where to go. Definitely your guy. I think that is pretty much the wrap for today. It has been an amazing pleasure chatting to you, and also very insightful. Thanks very much for your time today, Cobus.
Thanks so much, Cobus. It was really great.
No, thank you guys, man. What a lovely opportunity, and I really appreciate it. And I'm always here if you want to reach out and just chat some more.
Awesome.
Definitely, we will definitely hold you to that.
Okay, wicked.
Cool.
Love it. Awesome, guys. Have a happy Wednesday.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Say bye.
Bye.
Cheers.